समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया?
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
आप समझा?
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
The Chief Justice of India has promised to take another look at a highly contentious and polarizing Supreme Court order, one that has all animal lovers up in arms. The Supreme Court earlier this week ordered that all street dogs, or stray dogs as is colloquially known, must be leashed and forcibly put into shelters that don't exist. The Supreme Court mandated that such shelters must be set up in the next few weeks. Rights activists have pointed out that this is simply unrealistic. But there's also the issue of what will happen to these dogs. The worry is that unspeakable cruelty will be inflicted on these dogs in the name of upholding the Supreme Court order. I'm Barkha Dutt. You're with the Mojo Story. On the program today, we look at the fury and the uproar on the streets of Delhi, but also across India, as we look at the ramifications and the fallout of the Supreme Court order on stray dogs. The court, as I mentioned, made an intervention that has upset anybody, I think, who loves animals and who also understands that what is called a stray dog is often a community pet, looked after collectively in colonies and neighborhoods, not just inoculated and fed, but the animal in turn looks after and protects the colony. The Supreme Court seemed to understand none of this. It has mandated that these dogs should be forcibly moved into shelters. These shelters do not even exist. One shudders to think what might happen to these animals. The court says that it is worried about the rising incidence of rabies, but there isn't even consistent data available on how many Indians die from rabies every year. In fact, there's a wide discrepancy between the numbers submitted by the government in parliament just last year and what the World Health Organization claims. To talk about why this verdict has upset so many people is one of India's foremost animal welfare rights activists, also former Union Minister. Maneka Gandhi is with us. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us. What is the most problematic thing for you with your decades of experience in this space about the Supreme Court order?
Well, the most problematic and the most annoying is that you expect Supreme Court judges, because they're the last port of call for justice, to either study the subject, find the scientific evidence, listen to all sides, and then pronounce a judgment. The fact that some judge can misuse his position to simply go on a wild rant, and that to suo moto, without listening to anybody, without understanding the background, or without looking for a solution. This is a Marie Antoinette kind of let them eat cake, or even Alice in Wonderland, which is off with their heads kind of order, which is very frightening, because this same judge is going to become Chief Justice of India one day. And you actually wonder what on earth is happening. So that for me is the most worrying, more than dogs, more than people or anything. It's Supreme Court cannot afford to have whimsy, and it cannot afford to have tantrums and anger. It has to be reasonable, balanced, sane, and for the good of India, for all. This is not so. And this is apparently the second time in 2 weeks by the same judge. So that worries me the most. The second thing is that you've given an order saying that pick up all the dogs and shove them off into pounds. A pound is an enclosed space with a shed, which Delhi doesn't have, not even one. They have nothing. Now, in order to take, there are not 10 lakh dogs in Delhi, there are 3 lakh. But
I see.
to get these 3 lakh, to get these 3 lakh dogs into pounds means that you have to make 3,000 pounds. That means you have to employ 1.5 lakh people who will clean up the feces the urine of the dogs. You have to put in drainage systems, water and electricity. You have to find half an acre of land for each one. You have to get watchmen, you have to get sweepers, you have to feed them twice a day. And you cannot keep them in colonies because everybody will object to their constant barking, which is what they will do since they're locked up. So how will you do this? It's not possible. It's not possible to even make £1. So the mayor has feebly suggested that we will put them, we'll do it, but we'll put them into the 20 ABC centers. Each ABC center is the size of a thimble. They're just one room or two rooms with the roof is leaking. There's no drainage system. They're like slums. They're not proper ABC centers, which is why this entire problem has arisen. So where will you put them? You can't put them anywhere. So all you will be doing is doing what MCD has been doing for the last 6 years, picking them up from rich colonies or colonies where the judge lives, and then shoving them off into slums and colonies where poor people live. That's it. That's what is causing the biting. Agar aap dekh lein, if you look, the bites are who? No rich person has been bitten. No rich person's children have been bitten. It's all middle class, lower middle class, and poor people. And why? Because the RWAs and the MCD have been picking up dogs surreptitiously and throwing them into these colonies. So you get up in the morning and you have 10 dogs, which are community dogs. Everybody knows them. The next day you wake up and you have 20 dogs. And you wake up the third day and you have 30 dogs. So out of these, the new dogs will bite because they're lost, they're hungry, they're being attacked, they're in a new area. We have been telling the MCD for now 5 years plus, don't relocate dogs. Even 3 days ago, the MCD itself in its civic center, where the offices are, they picked up 55 dogs and they went and relocated them. Now those 55 dogs are going to bite everywhere. So the answer to it is not pounds. The answer to it is sterilization, but proper sterilization. 20 sterilization centers exist in Delhi. You will be surprised, Barkha ji, that of these 16 centers, or maybe even more, 16 centers have been given to friends and family of municipalities. In fact, a retiring municipal official gets this as a goodbye gift in his wife's name, in his friend's name, so that he can make money. Now you will ask, how does he make money? Because there's been a practice of the MCD that they will allow certain shelters which belong to them or their friends to write, they will sterilize, say, 10 dogs, and they will write 100 dogs. So they will pocket 90 dogs sterilization money and split it. So this is what has been happening now for 20 years. And the sterilization centers are in a terrible condition. They're leaking, nothing. There's no water, there's no drainage, there's no electricity. Some of them have 6 cages. It doesn't make any sense. The Animal Welfare Board has constantly examined them and told the MCD itself that for God's sake, either close them or make them properly. None of which have happened. Neither you close them nor do you make them properly. So the end result is that while a huge amount of money has been spent on the books and gone into pockets, in actual fact, the sterilizations have been very, very badly done.
So you're basically saying that this is also a story of corruption.
It's massive corruption, massive, not a little amount. And it's very pinpointable, So what has happened is that what really needs to be done is that you need to do what WHO told you when they started this program in India. You need to sterilize and vaccinate all the dogs and put them back in their own areas. Because in their own areas, they are community dogs. People look after them. They don't do a thing. Now that their testosterone is gone, they are fed. There will be no reason for them to bite, run after anybody, or do anything except live out their lives. Yeah. But instead, you pick them up, you sterilize them, and then you throw them somewhere else. If you do that, even a sterilized dog will bite because he's lost and hungry.
So you're saying this entire focus, sorry to interrupt you, the focus on rabies, for which there's actually very inconsistent data, these dog bites are a result of poor human intervention, taking dogs out of a familiar space. corrupt human intervention, taking dogs out of a space they're familiar with and putting them into a strange new environment.
That's right. And MCD is not the only one doing it. These RWAs, gated communities, all they do is there will be 500 flats and 5 dogs, but they will pick up those 5 dogs, they'll get an unauthorized van at night, and then they will go and throw them somewhere else. So the rich RWAs are as much to blame as the MCD. Now, if we can stop this, but let me come to the next subject that you introduced, which is rabies deaths. According to them, there were 54 deaths last year. Now, every week, 2,000 people die of being run over by cars. But we don't say anything to that. We have 1.5 lakh deaths a year from car accidents. Have we said that we're going to ban vehicles? No. We say that people should learn how to drive better. So 54 deaths. But let me come to the 54 deaths later. First, let's take the subject up of how many bites are there. Everybody has based their bites on what some minister said in Parliament last year, where he said that there are 37 lakh bites. And
can I ask you, before you explain this, why does the WHO give such an inflated figure compared to what the official figure of India is in Parliament?
Who knows? Who knows? Yeah. I don't think WHO has even given this figure. This figure has been standard for the last 100 years. It never goes up or down. So I think some bureaucrat wrote it in the 60s and nobody's bothered to check it out. In actual fact, we'll come to those as well. Okay. But let me get the bites, because bites supposedly lead to rabies, obviously. It's not transmitted by air. But the bites are supposed to be 37 lakh in 2024. Firstly, that's the most bizarre figure going. And why? Because we checked out how are these figures, how is this data gathered and given to a minister? It's gathered from all the hospitals where people go to have their injections. Now, you need 5 injections for rabies vaccine. In actual fact, the doctors count 1 injection as 1 bite. So you take 37 lakhs and you divide it by 5.
Yeah.
So you come to 7.2 lakhs. Then out of that, there is no data on are these really bites? Because a large number, when we find out, is a child is running, dog is running after her, child slips and falls, dog sniffs her and goes away. Instead of getting a tetanus injection, if she scraped herself, she will get a rabies injection. Number 1. 2, person goes with child or somebody to somebody's house, there the pet dog bites them. They will get, even though the pet dog is immunized, they will still get rabies injections, 5 of them, and those will be counted as 5 bites. Yeah. So these 7.2 lakh bites, which are a lot, of which 70% are given by pet dogs, because they are trained to protect their houses, their owners. Yeah. And 30% of 7.2 lakhs are by street animals. You divide that amount of 2 lakh bites amongst the whole of India. And then let us look at how little it is.
Yeah. But so why? What has motivated, you think, the Supreme Court to make this intervention? Is it a complete lack of understanding? Is there some other motivation? Because as you said,
he just lost his temper. You see, Times of India and NDTV have been carrying on a barrage of misinformation for the last 1 year, almost every day. Now, there's nobody that can check a journalist, and he knows that a dog bites man always gets eyeballs. So you carry on doing it. You take fake, literally about, I would say 10 to 20% are just fake write-ups or fake news. But however, let's just pretend all of them are more or less okay. The particular one that the judge relied on, unfortunately, turned out to be 100% fake. He said that a child died of rabies after being bitten by dogs. Now, this may have happened in other cases, but in this particular case, this child died of meningitis. And the whole news itself was fake. And that was borne out by the parents themselves. So he lost his shirt on this particular fake news report and then sounded off. That's it. And enlarged the argument to say, no, lock them all up, off with their heads. Now, this will cost the government 15,000 crores minimum and 5 crores a week feeding just in Delhi. Rajasthan, it will cost 1 lakh crores to make the centers in each district. And it will cost them about 1 crore a day to feed.
And I think what you've said is this is financially unviable, it's impractical, these shelters don't exist. Let me ask you this. Those who are supporting the Supreme Court, and I'm certainly not one of them, but those who are supporting the Supreme Court are presenting the protesters on the streets who've been, fighting with the cops today. I mean, it's actually staggering to see the kind of security that's been brought out just for people who are speaking up for dogs who can't speak for themselves. Yeah. They've presented this as a elite response.
Yes, of course, they would have to. That's why you see that all the people fighting there.
Person's response. How do you respond to that?
Everybody who fights for dogs is not fighting for dogs alone. They're fighting for harmony, peace, love. And they're actually fighting for the people who want the dogs locked up. Because I'll tell you what will happen. And people don't realize what will happen, is that we will, if we can lock up 3 lakh dogs, chalo, maan lo kar diye. Within a week, there will be 3 lakh dogs more. Because they will come in from Faridabad, Gurgaon, wherever they can come in from, because there's food in Delhi. Why is there food in Delhi? Because there are over 50,000 illegal chicken shops, meat shops, which have no license, but which give a hafta to the MCD. And which throw stuff on the road, blood, meat, feathers, feet, whatever. So you haven't dealt with that. So there's enough of food in Delhi. So if there's enough of food, the dogs will come. So when you've locked up the first 3 lakhs, then you lock up the second 3 lakhs, then you keep locking the 3 lakhs that keep coming in. So it's not a doable thing. However, there are no two sides in this. Nobody is objecting to an order by the Supreme Court. What we're objecting to is the unviability of the order.
Yeah.
The viability of what we're asking for is the same thing that these people are asking for, which is less dogs, no bites, and a humane relationship between both animal and person. That's exactly what we're asking for. And that can only be done if the dog is sterilized and brought back. And that can only be done if the sterilization centers are amazing. Yeah. Or become hospital standards. It can only be done if corruption stops in the MCD and the RWA. That's all. You look at Lucknow. Lucknow doesn't have 20 centers, even though it's a huge city. It has 1 center. And that 1 center is made beautifully, runs beautifully, and has very quietly and efficiently sterilized 80% of the dogs in Lucknow so far. Look at the center in Dehradun. Again, run by government, extremely professionally made and run. It has sterilized 100% of the dogs in Dehradun without any choo-choo. You don't see any complaints coming from there. So it can be done.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're not making light of these bites. You're just calling out the misinformation around them. 70% from pet dogs, the dogs we have at home, 30% from those out on the street, and many bites because dogs are being forcibly relocated. What needs to be done? What needs to be done? And are you taken aback by the kind of security that you saw on the streets today, pushing back against protesters? I mean, if only they brought out so much security to keep women safe on the streets from,
No, I was saying it's not just security. You're going to need that security now in future, because the police training, one of the police training things to the new recruits is to show them how to anticipate a robbery or heinous crime. Okay. And one of the things they say is that if in any gully or road there is a mysterious poisoning of dogs, you can be sure that within a week there's going to be an attack or a robbery in one of the houses.
Yeah.
That is a police ankara, not mine. So now when you remove the dogs, who is going to do public safety? Number one.
Yeah.
So many women who live alone keep
Yeah.
dogs, look after dogs. What are you going to do? You're going to put security guards outside their houses? Why not? So
Yeah.
this is going to be a massive crime thing as soon as the dogs move. Remember that.
Yeah.
Because police have said this has happened hundreds of times, that dogs have been killed and then something horrible has happened.
Let me ask you in the end, the Chief Justice has said, I think people are so angry that the Chief Justice has said today that he's going to take another look at this verdict. But, this is Delhi today, Rajasthan today, Tamil Nadu is talking about it. This may have set up a domino effect across India. What are you going to urge the government, the center, the state governments to do at this point?
I'm going to urge them to talk to this judge and to the Chief Justice. As it is, I think 25 or more the most senior lawyers in India are meeting him of the Supreme Court to say that, what you're doing is irrational. What I would urge the Chief Justice to do is to keep within the highest traditions of the Supreme Court and look at all the scientific evidence. Just let me give you one more piece, which is a year ago, the bench of two judges on the Supreme Court ruled that if the ABC rules were followed properly, there would be no problem in India, and therefore they urged the government to follow the ABC rules. Okay, this is Justice Maheshwari and one other judge. Now the same two-member bench, the two-member bench of the same Supreme Court has said, no, the rules are all rubbish. You just lock them up. Yeah. So which bench are we supposed to listen to? The first one, which is settled law passed by Parliament, law passed by the government, or should we look at the rent, which is the second law? What I would urge the government to do is put money into this program. When the government wanted to remove polio, they put 700 crores a month for 11 years into the program, and then it went. Till today, the government has not put 1 rupee in. Whatever is being done, now it doesn't even have a ministry. It has 3 Redpatiyas looking after it on the Animal Welfare Board, all of which are director level of officers. And you know how much power they have. 3 people in the whole of India. 2, no training systems for NGOs. So a mafia racket of relatives and friends takes the contracts. The third is the building of proper ABCs. The ABC, for instance, in Kanchipuram has been built in the middle of the garbage, where we throw the garbage. Who is going to go there? So Bhopal has done the same, and Indore has done the same. So build the ABCs like you would build a proper hospital. 4, make a nodal ministry. AWBI comes under animal husbandry, but animal husbandry has not allocated any money for this. The money for making the ABC centers is done by the Urban Development Ministry. The only ministry that should have a stake in this is the Health Ministry, and they have not been consulted for anything. So there's no money in the program. There are no ABCs. So what can you do? That's what I would urge the government to do, is to take this up on priority level, put money into it, make a proper animal welfare board instead of 3 director level people, and put it into a ministry that has a stake in it. And within 2 years, I promise you, we will never hear this lament again. I fully stand by people whose children have been bitten.
Yeah.
After all, if my son was bitten, I'd feel just as upset. Or even if I was bitten, I'd feel really upset. Yeah. But the point is that we have to solve the problem, not say off with your head.
Absolutely. And a problem that is worse than the solution, quite frankly. Thank you. Thank you so much, Maneka Gandhi. Always learn so much from you on these issues, and thank you for speaking up. I do hope the Chief Justice is able to make an intervention and basically review this and take it off. Not off with their heads, but take this verdict off and bring a more reasonable, rational.
Our heads.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.